In this second class, I want you to think that on making inner peace associated to abuse and trauma, that you likely have become a skeptic that there is such a thing as inner peace. There's a story about Viktor Frankl that I mentioned in my book, Inner Peace, Own Your Peace, KISS Method for Inner Peaceful Living. Viktor Frankl was in the midst of the horrible Nazi camps and died almost from his own starvation, and had family members that were killed and murdered in the gas chambers with the gold plucked out of their teeth and their dignity shattered, and mice and mites and starving mice and starving mites eating and nibbling away at their flesh inside the horribly diseased and cold, awful, dirty environment that they kind of slept in between the time that they'd have to work. People died, rotten flesh around. He writes about this in many of his books, Viktor Frankl, about that he discovered that the Nazis might be able to completely dominate and destroy his body and his family's body and his friends, but they couldn't rob him of his mind. And I want you just to really contemplate, maybe mind is your soul. Maybe mind is a space, an inner sanctuary. Maybe mind is just your identity as who you are. Maybe mind is a collective of every experience you've ever had and every nightmare or daydream or hope or loss that you've ever experienced. Maybe it's a collective of everything you've been. Maybe all the lives you've ever lived. But I think what I want you to pay attention to is that this inner peace is really a dialogue inside of you where you want to build a sanctuary where it is peaceful in you. Having worked in psychiatric hospitals, remember I do not talk about patients, but having worked in psychiatric hospital, you find that the inner peace for people is awfully elusive. And though, nonetheless, even in the presence of hallucinations and delusions, there can be inner peace. And even in those moments. Now, we're not in a psychiatric hospital, but the inside of our mind may feel like one at times when we feel crazy, or we feel befuddled by nightmares and awful sorts of things that we have to navigate our way through. And simultaneously, we need to create a space that is our inner castle, our peaceful place, where we have to just kind of put the flag and say, I am here and no one else gets to be here. In the practices of remote viewing, one of the ways the individuals teach the process of remote viewing, I won't go into the details of that, is that they say create a place where only you are allowed to go. No one else in your imagination is allowed to go. In fact, if anybody else intrudes in your imagination, you send them away. Now, in this inner space, you can decorate it any way you want to. It's your domain. Include anything in it that's meaningful to you. Anything that causes you distress, just kick it out, throw it away. It doesn't belong in this space. Maybe another room, maybe another place, but this is your sanctuary. And you want to create a sanctuary place for you. And call it yours. What we do discover is that every individual that endures and survives trauma and abuse that's chronic in nature, they do create a space where they can dwell. Every book that you ever read about an abused individual, a kidnapped and abused individual, a rape victim who survived, a soldier that survived, when they're able to voice it, they talk about what that sanctuary was. Was it the little conversations they had as they tapped out messages across the jail walls as a missing in action warrior? Where they had some sort of communication? Was it just listening to a bird outside their cell? What was it for you? What was it for you in your abuse and your trauma if you experienced a chronic situation? if you've just experienced an acute situation, something that just happened, and it came and it went, but it was awful, but before that time your life was blissful or peaceful, had many moments that were worthwhile and pleasant, you need to go back and you need to populate this inner sanctuary of your mind with all of that information. Populate it. Don't let what you went through rob you of your past. Because the temptation is that individuals say that my past was peaceful, but that's just because I was stupid and naive, and now it's completely ruined. Why? Why? That stuff still exists. It still happened. It was still good. And just because horrible things happen to you in your present doesn't mean that that's real and the good was fake. So you want to go back and populate this inner space, this place of your mind, with as many present things, imaginative things, or past things that are about the real space of peacefulness. And even if that real space of peacefulness comes from your fantasies, so be it. Because think about this. If you can create, even in your imaginings, something that feels treasured and good and peaceful and wonderful and yours and safe, then in your imagination, you created that inner peace. And that's what Viktor Frankl realized. They can take everything away from me. The gold in my teeth, my physical health, my loved ones. But they cannot dominate my inner sanctuary if I so structure it that only I and all that's good exists and survives in there. So now in this course on inner peace, know that that is so important to commit yourself to creating and practicing everything that fills up that sanctuary inside.